This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, all. Today is the last day of your
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
good morning. Today is the last day of your induction program. I know
Yes,
you
ma'am.
must be feeling very bad because it is going to end. So we usually in the middle of the week we always think, oh, it should end. It should end. It is so too much of talking. But at the end of the day, you will think, oh, it is ending. We are losing something. It's always like that. Even in the childhood is like that. And the childhood, when you are in as a child, you will always think you want to grow up. When you grow up, you will always think you want to be a child. So we are ending. This is the last day of your orientation. So actual classes will start from next week in a due course. So myself, Dr. Rajamma, Professor, Head of Department of Pharmacognosy. So I want to brief you about the medicinal and aromatic plant garden. So this is, we are maintaining from the Department of Pharmacognosy. As you all know, we have been using this medicinal plants or the plants in our kitchen. So our kitchen is like a small clinic. Whatever we use, everything has some other medicinal properties. Without our knowledge, we use these drugs for a treatment. Like once you get a cough, you will start going for a ginger. Where is a ginger? Let me have a ginger tea or a ginger with a honey. Definitely cure your cough or the throat. It gives an immense something like a good feeling when you're having a ginger with the honey. So this like it is inculcated in our life using these plant herbs. So when if you know that Ayurveda system of medicine, which is there in India from 5,000 years, so Charaka and Shushruta is a founder of this Ayurveda system of medicine. So when student went to Charaka and he wanted to learn something about the system, or you wanted to become a doctorate in the Ayurvedic system of medicine. So what Charaka said, you just find a drug or find an herb or a plant which does not have any medicinal value. So he started searching throughout his life, half of his life, he couldn't find any plant which does not have any use. So he came back and said, sir, everything, all the plants on the earth, it has one or the other use. It might be poison. Poison also can be used for a medicinal property, like Nerium indicum. Probably in Kannada you would have heard as a ganagle. So this contains alkaloids, which is actually very toxic to the human beings. So around the Ganagle Gida or the Nerium indicum, nothing grows because it releases the alkaloids around it. So it is so toxic, but it can be used for as an anti-cancerous drug when it is used in a smaller quantity. Now coming to this, medicinal plants, as we are all talking, have been part of our life since human life came to existence on earth. Part of the plants such as roots, leaves, flowers have been used for various medicinal purposes from the time immemorial. The day we are born, we have started using the plants, probably as a food or as a medicine. So as Hippocrates says, food should be like a medicine. So allopathy medicine had almost replaced Ayurveda till recently. So till the COVID, we were being fascinated with the allopathic system of medicine because it cures very fast. Definitely it has a side effects. When it comes to the herbal medicine or the Ayurvedic system of medicine, it has very less side effects. And now the world is turning towards the natural way of treatment for the safety. More than a curing, we need a safety. So recently, WHO estimated next slide. Yeah. See, recently WHO estimated that 80% of WHO estimated 80% of people worldwide rely on the herbal medicine for primary healthcare needs. It's been estimated that in developed countries such as US, plant drugs contains is 25% along with the allopathic system of medicine. So sow the seeds of health, plant trees to save the planet. So without a plant, there is no life. So you can see the demand of medicinal plants from the health sector. About 2,500 plant species are used in all the codified system of medicine practices in India. We have been using from past 5,000 years Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani system of medicine along with the homeopathic, which is based on the medicinal plants. You can see the Ayurveda almost 1,500 species is being used in the Ayurvedic system of medicine. In the Siddha, 1,128 is being used. Unani, around 500. Coming to the homeopathic, so there is no much research, but whatever the treatment is there in homeopathy, it is a perfect one, but it has a very less of treatment. We can see the almost 500 species is being used. In the Western system of medicine, they use a 192. So when it compared to the Ayurveda, it has got a more number of species we are using it. So global demand of medicinal plants, as you can see on the slide, it is day by day it is increasing. As per WHO, the global market value of herbal industry is expected $5 trillion in 2050. The global market growth for the industry is expected to be 7% per annum from 2000 to 2050. Now, because of a COVID, probably it will go to the double the per annum, because we are finding a remedy through the Go Green or through the herbal medicine. If you say that, see, Khada, we were all drinking in this 3 months or in this past 6 months. No, we should not get a COVID. Not getting a COVID, let us have a Khada, whatever it is. It might be a sore, it might be of a very bitter in taste. Let me have a Khada. We were having it. So that is the power of a herbal medicine. That is a power of a Ayurvedic system of medicine, where you can enhance the immune boosters. See, as of now in India, immune boosters we don't use much. If you go to the Western countries, because of the environmental conditions, they need an immune boosters, because they faces the extreme cold conditions. They need a immune boosters. You can see over the counter ashwagandha, all this which as enhances shatavari, ashwagandha, all this which enhances the immunity. But we have inculcated those things in our daily life. You can see that. So in Deepavali, we do the Abhyangana, that actually removes the toxins from our body. To Abhyangana also, what we do it, we usually use a till oil. So that's how, means the use of herbal drugs, you can see it is in Ayurvedic system, Ayurvedic, Siddha, Unani and herbal formulations, immensely it is used. It's in proprietary and ethical OTC medicine. Over the counter, you get all these medications. You know, nowadays herbal cosmetics, aloe vera is a queen of cosmetics, we call it as, because aloe vera is nowadays used in everything. It is humectant, it enhances your glow. So aloe vera is used as such. Aloe vera can be used as in cosmeceuticals, it can be used. So also one more herbal teas. Nowadays you can see that red roses with ashwagandha, which actually cures the many of our diseases. So if you have a migraine, they say that along with ashwagandha herbal tea, drink it, so it goes. So migraine is one of the bad headache that we have. So that can be cured with a herbal tea. It's always fine. So you just a decoction of a tea, one decoction of a powder. If you are drinking, it is always a good. Then extract and phytochemicals, resins and gums. We are exporting it. One of the gum, Google gum. It actually, see, if you are fat, you are a liposuction, you are doing it, and you will have many side effects. But if you see that a Google gum, if you consume it, it will reduce your fat. So it is so good. So when we were child, I don't know, nowadays you all have different kind of candies. When we were small, these gums, they used to come in a hard mass. They used to put it in a water. They used to get swell. We used to consume that. So it is like we used to chew them like a bubble gum. So we have enjoyed those all things. Nowadays we are going far from a nature. which we have to go to the nature to reduce our all the ailments, to enhance our immunity. So flavors and fragrances. So until unless there is no flavors in the life, probably there is no much life in the life. There is no much life in the life. If the food is tasting good, you feel like having it if you're full. Why you like a Chinese system, Chinese food? It's just because the flavors. You like the flavors. They majorly use the volatile oils. So the herbs which contains a volatile oil, it might be the pudina to mint to any of this volatile oil they use. But Indian Chinese system of medicine, we use an artificial flavors which is not good for the health. But the actual flavors from the plants when you use it, that fragrance is excellent. Nowadays, you know that aromatherapy is gaining an importance. We are all stressed out. I know you people also stressed out because we are conducting for 1 week orientation. You can always have an aromatherapy. You can just keep an volatile oil around you. You feel so good because it decreases your stress level. So there are many culinary herbs and spices. Everything you take in our kitchen, they are the spices. So because of spices, we have been looted or we have been exploited by the British people. That is another. But the thing is, from the cinnamon to the pepper to anything you take, they are in our kitchen, which actually good for your GIT. If your GIT is good, definitely you are healthy. So not only this, veterinary herbal products, even the animals will have an indigestion. They may not eat properly sometimes. So just give an few herbs, it cures the indigestion and make it as a powder. And even we are making and giving to my native places, the veterinary herbal products, they are working so well. See, these are all the uses are there, but ultimately we are collecting them immensely, which is causing an extinction, endangered. There are thousands of species which has entered into a red data book, which has got endangered. You're not supposed to even touch them. So one drug, Camptothecika, when we were doing an M-Pharm, it was used as an anti-cancer. One article came and I wanted to do a work on it. But the thing is, so once I completed M-Pharm, I didn't do it. But once I completed, I wanted to take it to the PhD work. But the thing is, when I went to the Mangalore to collect that, it has got endangered within 2 years. Means the collection of the Camptothecika plant was so much, I couldn't see that it was grown like that. That was not able to see it to that. Means that much case. And see, if it is good, you always feel that yeah, that I want to consume it. I want to have it, and we will never think it should be there or not, or if I exploit like this, if I take the drug like this, one day it will go to get extinct. So the economic importance of a medicinal plants is causing a threat to a natural resources. So not only the in India, to the rest of the world also it is causing a threat. So what we have to do for that, we need to do a conservation. So conservation, until unless you do that, probably the next generation will not able to. Many of the plants which I was able to see, like probably one Shankapushpi, used to grow everywhere in the bushes. Now I hardly see the Shankapushpi. So the conservation needs to be done. We have to grow the plants. So these are the different methods of conservation: medicinal plant garden, gene bank, park, botanical gardens, tissue culture, seed banks. These are many. So you can see that there are Bandipur Park or like that. There are many parks which is done by the government. As an individual, we have a societal implications or societal uh, responsibilities, that we can always make a terrace garden or a garden in your balconies, or the in the kitchen inside the house itself. We can grow few plants which are very helpful or give the good oxygen level. So here we have made an attempt from Akeli College of Pharmacy, from the Department of Pharmacognosy, to grow a small medicinal plant garden which will help our students to know about the plants, to know their uses. And see, I might be talking many things about the garden or the plants, until unless you you don't see them visually, so you don't experience it. Until unless you have a pain, so you don't know the what is the instant or what is the extent of a pain. So it is always good to have a see, or you have to see those plants to experience them. Oh, this Mimosa pudica, this touch me not plant looks like this, the Datura looks like this, Ashwagandha, oh, this I've seen. You will see, once you see the plant, oh, this I've seen, it grows here. So that's how you will start loving, or there will be a connection between the you and the nature. So that's how we are creating an interest in the students. Just we are creating a, nothing else. I think you people all are brilliant. We need to have and just need to create an interest in you so that you will love your nature and you will love what you do it. So we have made a small medicinal plant garden, medicinal and aromatic plant garden, named as Dhanvantri, located at the rear side of a college, and it is extended over the area of 15 to 45 square feet. And this garden has around 64 medicinal plant species grown for teaching and training the students and research scholars. So many a times when I give a research work for them, oh, this plant I don't know, madam, how to collect, you will have that apprehension. Once you see that, oh, this plant, the confidence of seeing something, yeah, visually, you will have that, a different confidence. So it is also maintained near the pharmacognosy labs. One of the plant is Chinnema, which is used as an anti-diabetic drug. So why we need to, by now you would have understood why we need to maintain a medicinal garden, to create awareness about the plants and to know about the therapeutic uses of the plants. So once you know the use, definitely you will start using it, and you will tell your others also. You can use ginger for this. No, why you want to take it this? You know, many of a cough medicines, they are actually a depressant. When we give for a children, it start depressing. They are the one, the brain is just now growing. It is just the that you, when you give a depressant, they will start having a problem or thinking. So instead of that, if you give a ginger with the one honey, it will cure. So they will feel good. So that's how. And specimen collection. So when we do practicals, TS, transposition, morphology, all this. For this we collect it from our garden. Herbarium preparations, many a times when they are like, it'll, all the plants will not grow in all the seasons. So what we do it, we collect it and make a herbarium so that the next class, or if it is not available, they can see, and you will know each characteristic. Identification of a medicinal plant is very important. The many plants look alike. That time you have to see that, oh, this is how it has to be identified. This is a margin, this is an apex. So that is very important, and you will learn in herbarium preparation. It's not only for a teaching, learning, and for a research. It's also we are making an attempt to conservation, and for a demonstration for our other college students, and also the egg propagation center. We are trying to propagate, tulsi within 3 months it just goes off. We are propagating it to many, including other plants which just goes off. We are propagating in our center. This is our medicinal garden, which is being maintained from 2004. Now recently we are revamped. So we recreated that, or we redesigned it with the able guidance of our principal, Dr. Raman Dang. And you can see the inauguration. This is the inauguration photo. It's inaugurated by the Al-Amin College principal, and we are very happy to have our medicinal garden. So these are the few of the charts. Whatever we have in the garden, we have made into a chart which contains a biological source, synonym, chemical constant, and uses. So whenever we are teaching, when we can't go to the garden, or you would have seen in the garden by chance, if you forget, you can always see the charts, and you will just, that will come in your brain, or you will just recall it. So these are the crude drugs. From many a times I might say this is a plant, this is a plant. Many a time, by the time it bears a seed, or the fruits or the roots, you might go off to the next class. So just to show you that these are the parts of a plant. I cannot pluck the shatavari and show this is a root which is used. Instead of that, we have collected and we have stored, so that this is a plant, this is a root which is used for the many of our diseases. These are the few plants which is there in our garden. You can see Kalmeg, Mandukaparni, Vandalga, and Vajravalli, which is a very good anti-rheumatic drug. This is a lavender, peppermint, black pepper. This is all about the garden. So garden plays an important role in our life. So try to maintain this one. A small video of our garden you can see. Will you go, sir? This is good. Will you? So probably you will love to do a garden. So thank you so much. Now I'll give to Dr. Ari Prasad sir will take over. He will continue with the animal house and the ethical committee.
Good morning, sir.
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 Good morning, students.
Good morning, sir.
You are not audible. Your audio is mute.
Yes, sir, we are audible.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, ma'am. On behalf of Koeli Academy of Higher Education and Research, respected principal, staff, Koeli College of Pharmacy, Bangalore, I, Hari Prasad, heartily welcome all the students, parents, and invitees to the today's session on Animal Health or Ethics Committee. Before I start on this particular session, I would like to say one small story which is very well connected to our life. I think most of the people would have been already familiar with this particular story. This is nothing but the story of two monks and a woman.
Excuse me, sir, you are not audible, sir.
Sir, your voice was low, sir.
Voice was
1 minute, 1 minute. Is it clear? Hello?
yes, sir.
Can you hear me, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the
Yes,
story
sir.
goes like this. One day, a senior and junior monks were traveling together. At one point, they came to a
Your
river.
voice was low.
Voice was?
Very audio. We can't hear you. Audio.
Yeah, now, sir?
No, not now. Also not okay.
No.
If you are using a laptop, now you can remove this.
No, we are using same laptop, sir, with Radhika madam. Just now she had a session, no? Same
Previous
laptop.
session was clear. Now there is some disturbance. Check.
Yeah, now, sir?
Sorry, Hari, now also bad.
Just a moment. Yeah, now, sir?
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the story goes like this. Is clear, sir, now, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. A senior and junior monks were traveling together. At one point, they came to a river with a strong current. So as the monks were preparing to cross the river, they mainly found a beautiful young woman trying to crossing the river. So the young woman asked if they could help to cross the river. So what happens? These two monks usually, glance together because they have taken a place that they are not supposed to touch the woman. So again, the young woman, the young monk ignored her, but the senior monk picked up the woman and carried her across the river and set her other side of the river. So the younger monk could not believe because they have taken a pledge not to touch the woman, but this senior monk did this. So how come it is not supposed to do this? Then hour passes. Then the younger monk has a hesitation to ask this particular question to the senior monk. After a few hours, again the younger monk asked the senior monk, as you all know, we have taken a pledge that not to touch women. How did you carry that woman to crossing the river? Then the senior monk replied that I set her other side of the river long back, but still you are carrying in your mind. So the moral of the story is, it is a reminder not to dwell on the past in a way that interfere with living in the present moment. Even we in our life, we dwell in the past in such a way that will interfere with the living in the present moment. So that's why students, don't think too much about the past, focus your present and future, and then go ahead, and you are taking a right choice for selecting this course, and that ends the story. I hope you understand the moral of the story. Now coming to the main presentation of the Animal House or Ethics Committee. So before we get into the discussion on Animal House or the Ethics Committee, let us briefly discuss about what is drug discovery and development. So here what happens, the initial phases of drug discovery usually involves use of animals. As you all know, the sources of the drug, as Madam just now said, it could be a plant, or it could be an animal, or a mineral, or it could be a synthetic reaction. So once we identify the drug, we need to prove safety, efficacy, toxicology, and formulation development in animals. So once we prove a safety, efficacy, toxicity, and develop a formulation then we move on to the establishing the safety, efficacy, toxicology in humans. That is usually called as clinical development. Whereas the assessing the safety, efficacy, toxicology in animals, that is usually called as preclinical development. So once we develop a drug, that has to go for a regulatory review. Usually the regulatory bodies, USFDA, that is Food and Drug Administration, or it is CDSCO, DCGI, that is in India, that is the Drug Control General of India, or Central Drug Standard Control Organization. So once it is being approved, again the drug undergoes a process called as post-marketing surveillance. So after releasing the drug into the market, the drug is being watched for its any adverse effects, because these studies is being done in a small population. Once it is being released into the large population, you may anticipate adverse effects in a mass. So that's why it has to be watched as surveillance. So that is, I think, what is called as post-marketing surveillance. Now, with respect to today's session, we are mainly dealing with your preclinical development. So if you want to carry out any particular study in animals, we cannot just pull one animal and then carry out studies. There are so many concerns are there, like ethical issues are there, so moral issues are there. So that's why we need to comply all those things. Then only we can go for carrying out the studies in animals. Now let us see how these animal experimentation is being carried out. Is there any body or committee which is mainly supervise these experimentation on animals? Of course, we have an ethics committee. That is nothing but is called as CPC-SCA. That is a committee for the purpose of control and supervision of experiments on animals. In short, it is called as CPC-SCA. It is formed in 1964 by the Act of Indian Parliament under the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. It is again revived in 1998 under the committee chairperson of Maneka Gandhi. She is an animal rights activist, environmentalist, and a politician. So we have a nation level expert committee to scrutinize and approve the research projects conducted on animals. So that's why any establishment willing to carry out experiments on animals should have approval from this particular committee, that is nothing but is called as a CPC-SCA. Now let us see what is the composition of this CPC-SCA. Yeah, the CPC-SCA is mainly constitutes the members of scientific community, regulatory authorities, animal activists. Because animal activists are the one which are mainly concerned with the animal welfare. Because as a scientific community people, we usually sometimes there is have a bias. So that's why the animal activists are the part of this particular committee. So that's why they don't have any bias, and also they are very much concerned with the handling of animals, and also handling of animals before experimentation, during experimentation, and after experimentation. So this CPCSA is mainly formed from the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and this CPCSA again has IAEC, IBC, or IBSC. See, CPCSA cannot go each and every establishment or any institute to supervise animals. So they constitute these two committees. These two committees have a control and supervision on animal experimentation which are carrying out in any institution or organization. So let us see what are those. The first one is, as I already said, IAEC, which is nothing but is called as Institutional Ethics Committee, and the second one is IBC, Institutional Biosafety Ethics Committee. So this CPCSA set some guidelines. These guidelines need to follow by all the organizations, institutions which are involving in research and breeding of animals. Let us see what is the main goal of the CPCSA. So if you don't have a set of guidelines, what happens? There will be a mishandling of animals or misusing of animals. So that's why the CPCSA set guidelines which need to follow by all these organizations. Let us see what is this main goal of the CPCSA. The goal of these guidelines is to promote the humane care of animals used in biomedical and behavioral research and testing with the basic objective of providing specifications that will enhance animal well-being. So the main motto of the CPCSA is to enhance animal well-being, because whenever we handle animals, so we have to handle in such a way that the animal should not feel pain, and also if at all if you are carrying out any surgical procedures or any other kind of experiments, the animal should not suffer pain. So that's why that is the main motto of the CPCSA committee. So these guidelines are mainly particular to veterinary care. So that is this veterinary care is mainly taken care by the veterinarian, because the veterinarian is also a part of your IAEC, that is Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. He or she is the one who mainly take care the health of the animals which are used in animal experimentation. Clear? So these CPCSA guidelines are mainly pertaining to your animal procurement. It's very, very important. Whenever you procure animals from any other source, we have a set of guidelines. So how to transport these animals? If at all, after transporting with the special care, what need to be done when it is being shifted to the new area? There will be a quarantine. As you all know, when you move from one place to another place, you must need to go for quarantine, right? So this is also applicable for animals. Of course, you now in this corona scenario, you might have heard this particular word, that is quarantine, right? So next is stabilization, because when you're moving from one place to another place, the animals should get acclimatized with the existing environment with respect to the food it consumes, the water it takes, or the environment where it is growing. So it has to get stabilized, so that requires some time, and also separation. As you all know, if any diseased animals are found, or if during transport, or if there is any injury to the animals, these animals need to be separated and then taken care separately. Is it clear? So even these CPCSA guidelines have a set guidelines CPCSA. So with respect to your separation of animals. Next is surveillance. This is very important. So after animals are transported to the new area, we need to keep a watch on the animals. We have to see the stability of animals, whether they are stable or not, whether they are healthy or diseased, if at all. If they found disease, then they have to be separated. Otherwise, what happens? There will be a transmission of diseases from the diseased animals to healthy animals. So if at all, if the animals found disease, then by symptoms we have to go for diagnosis of particular disease, and based upon the diagnosis we have to give a specific treatment under the supervision of the veterinarian. And also, if disease is getting spreading, then we need to take a proper control to avoid the disease or transmission of the disease from one animal to another animal. Here, so that is about your surveillance, diagnosis, treatment, and control of disease. So next, we have animal care and technical personnel. The people who are involved in animal care has to be undergo a proper training of animal handling, and also proper health checkups periodically. So what happens, there will not be a contamination or cross contamination or transmission of diseases from humans to animals, vice versa. Is it clear? So that's why this also very important, that is animal care and technical personnel. Next is personal hygiene. Of course, if the people who are involved in animal care need to be healthy. If they are diseased, they will not supposed to handle those animals, and they are not or they are prohibited to handle the animals for time being, because there will be a chances of disease spreading from humans to animals. Of course, there are some zoonotic diseases which are also spreading from animals to humans. So that's why we need to properly take in care. Next is animal experimentation involving hazardous agents. See, sometimes what happens, there are some experimentation where we have to handle some hazardous agents, like maybe bacteria or virus, or sometimes there will be involvement of production of these agents which are biohazardous, which are so there are some guidelines set by the CPCSA. Those are called as guidelines pertaining to the animal experimentation involving hazardous agents. That is mainly reviewed by your institutional biosafety ethics committee. Clear? And location of animal facilities to laboratories and animal husbandry. So we have animal house facilities in our campus, so where we store the animals, and whenever there will be a experimentation need to be done, so we usually conduct animal experimentation after getting approval from the IAEC, that is Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. Next is animal husbandry. It is very important. The micro environment and macro environment is very important for the animal health. The macro environment is nothing but the location of the animal house. It has to be physically separated from the human usage, and it has to be free from the noise. And the micro environment is nothing but the cages where we are keeping the animals. How many animals we are keeping the cage? What is the bedding material we are using? What is the dimension of the cage? So based upon the dimension of the cage, we usually go for the number of animals. Clear? So is there any separation of the species? Like for example, if you use rats, mice, so we cannot club together this species. So there will be a separation of the species cages, and also what is the bedding material, what is the feed we are providing, what is the nutritional status of the feed. Everything need to be recorded properly and need to be submitted to the IAEC whenever the members will inspect the animal house facilities. That is nothing but is your animal husbandry. Next, let us see what are the functions of CPCSA. So all the establishment engaged in research and education involving animals are required to comply with the various guidelines, norms, and the stipulations set out by CPCSA. This is already I discussed. And the registration of the establishment conducting animal experimentation or breeding of animal for this purpose. So there will be establishments where we usually carry out the experiment, but we don't breed it. But the people who are involved in both, that is the breeding as well as the um, research, need to get registered by the CPCSA, and subsequently it has to be renewed every 4 to 5 years in order to continue the license and carry out the experiments on animals. Next is selection and appointment of nominees in the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee of registered establishments. So here what happens, the CPCSA mainly select and appoint the nominees to the committee, that is Institutional Animal Ethics Committees of registered establishment. For example, we are the registered establishment to carry out animal experimentation. We have an IAAC, and the nominees are usually selected, appointed by the CPCSA. Of course, we also have in-house members. Apart from that, we also have the nominees which are nominated by the CPCSA. Next is permission for conducting animal experiments. So whenever we have any proposals to carry out animal experimentation, we need to present to the IAAC for getting the permission. After careful review, and after we get justify why you required animals, what is the number of animals, what are the species, what is the sex, gender. So after they careful review, they then only they will permit the number of animals to carry out the animal experimentation. And action against establishment in case of violation of any legal norms. So if any establishment violate the any legal norms, then there will be action taken by the CPCSA. It could be a registration of the cancellation of the registration of the establishment to conduct the animal experimentation, or maybe they impose some fine. So this kind of actions usually the CPCSA will take. Now let us see what is the main composition of the composition and functions of the IAAC, that is Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. As already said, the IAAC is mainly constituted by our nominees from the CPCSA and the members from the establishments where we are carrying out the animal experimentation. Is it clear? Now let us see what is the composition of IAAC. So the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee, it is in a body comprising of a group of persons, and which these are recognized and registered by the CPCSA. So the composition goes like this. So for example, so nominees from the CPCSA, as already said in the beginning, CPCSA will nominate and appoint the nominees. So those are main nominee, link nominee. In case of main nominee is not available, then the link nominee will be the part of your IAAC. Next is the scientist from outside the institute and socially aware nominee. So socially aware nominee and scientists from outside the institute and main nominee or link nominee or the nominees from the CPCSA. Of course, we also have members from the establishment where we are carrying out the research. That is one biological scientist who is mainly involved in charge of the animal house, and the two scientists from different biological disciplines. For example, we have 5 departments in our college. Example, pharmacology, pharmacochemistry, pharmacognosy, pharmacy practice. So at least 2 scientists from different biological disciplines should be there. And of course, the main important one is a veterinarian who is mainly involved in the care of animals. So this is and one scientist in charge of animal facility of the establishment concerned. So this is the composition of the institutional animal ethics committee, which every establishment or registered establishment should have. Now let us see what are the functions of the IAAC. IAAC should focus mainly on ensuring the ethical and methodological handling of animals during and after experiments so that they have a less suffering. So the main motto of not to cause severe pain or not to cause pain, or they should suffer less pain. Is it clear? That is the main motto. The IAAC will review and approve all the types of protocols for research involving small animal experimentation before starting of the study. So as already said, before starting of the study, we have to present the proposals to the IAAC to get an approval to carry out the research. Okay. Next, IAAC is required to monitor the research throughout the study and after completion of the study. So even after completion of the study, we have to provide what you are doing those animals, whether you are sacrificing animals, not sacrificing, if at all not sacrificing, whether they you are rehabilitating. All those things we have to carefully monitored by the IAAC. Next is IAAC shall obtain the periodic reports on research development and shall ensure visit to animal house facility and laboratory where the experiments are conducted. So usually these animal house inspection will be periodically done, that is yearly once, and then to supervise the animal house facility as well as the laboratory where we carry out the animal experimentation. And the committee has to ensure compliance with all regulatory requirements, applicable rules, guidelines, and laws. So this IAAC ensures whether all these guidelines are comply by the establishment. If there is any violation, they will write a report to CPCSA, and the CPCSA take the action against the establishment who violate the norms. Next, we have IBSC, as already said, Institutional Biosafety Committee. So here the composition very simple. The head of the institution or his nominee will be the a member, and 3 or more scientists engaged in DNA work or molecular biology with an outside expert in the relevant discipline. As already said, so any experimentation which involves or engage in DNA work or any other kind of biological substance like virus or any parasites or bacteria, it has to be get approved by the IBSC. Next is a member with medical qualification biosafety officer in case of work with the pathogenic agents large scale use. As already said, pathogens which are nothing but disease causing agents, which are all in case if you are using it has to be approved by the IBSC, and one member nominated by the DBT, that is Department of Biotechnology, because they are the one who are expert in the this particular field. Next, coming to the functions, the committee shall examine the proposal on animal experiments involving hazardous agents in addition to its existing function, as already discussed, and review of procedures and the facilities to be used for research having biohazardous potential. So all these, as already said, biopathogenic agents or any other material which are prone to hazardous to the nature, so that has to be reviewed. Next is disposing of tissue and fluid from such used animals must also be appropriately governed as per the laid in practice of the institution biosafety regulation. See, after we perform the experiment, if at all if you are using any animal carcass or any tissues or fluids, there is a proper procedure to dispose. For example, we need to incinerate whatever is being produced as a animal experimentation. So that is about your composition and the functions of the IBSC. So next, what we have is called as the credo of 3Rs principles. If the animal activists and the animal welfare people, they're very particular in usage of animals. That's why the people going for alternatives to animals. That is nothing but is called as the 3R principles. Let us see what is these 3R. The first one is So here the Russell and Brooks in 1959 proposed that if animals were to be used in experiments, every effort should be made to replace them with non-sentient alternatives. Is it clear? So how can we go for replacing these animals? So we have three approaches, that is the replacement, reduction, and refinement. Let us see what is this replacement. So here, instead of using an intact animal, we can go for the in vitro experiments. That is, maybe you can go for cell cultures or tissue culture studies. So where we don't use the intact animal, rather we go for the a part of organ will be taken, and then we grow, as a tissue culture or cell culture. Next, using computer programs. Nowadays we have so many computer programs like simulated experiments we have. So we can go for this particular experiments to replace the animals. Now we can directly go for human experiments, avoiding the animal experimentation by conducting the microdosing studies. So that is about your replacement. Next is reduction. Wherever it is possible, we need to reduce the number of animals. Okay, so again, we reduce the number of animals by carrying out the in vitro experiments using computer programs and human experiments. So this can be achieved by this method. Next is refinement. Here, minimally invasive experiments or shorter experiments we have to use. So we have to refine in such a way that the animal should not feel much pain. So that can be achieved by minimally invasive experiments. That means you have to make a small incisions if you want to get exposed some internal organs, and the shorter experiments we have to perform, and also reducing suffering. So we have to carry out the experiments under the influence of anesthesia. So animals will not suffer pain during this anesthesia, and also to improve the animal welfare, better handling of the housing. So after experimentation or during experimentation, we have to take a proper care in order to handle these animals so that they will not feel pain. So that is about your 3R strategy, and the we have the 4R strategy also. That is in 2004, CPCS officially accept, and uh, the 4R, that is rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is nothing but after conducting the experimentation. So we have to maintain until they die. Or if at all, if you want to sacrifice, we have to get an approval from the IAEC to sacrifice these animals, because the investigators or the people who are involved in animal experimentation have a moral responsibility to take care of laboratory animals after experimental use. Is it clear? So that is the 4R. So that is all about the Animal House or Ethics Committee. So thank you for your patient listening. If you have any issue, we have some time, and you can have questions. I hope you understood well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, all the participants, for your patient
Thank you,
listening.
sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So
Thank
we
you,
are
sir.
going to have one more session. Please join the session by Dr. Munir sir. It would be a very useful session. So please join the session. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you all of you.